guitar lovers, my name is Ollie and you probably know why you're here, but just in case you've accidentally stumbled across this video, welcome to me talking about cool guitars once again. And this week, certainly no exception, I am talking about this stunning American original Stratocaster in a new for 2020 finish to the range, shell pink, and I'm also going to be comparing it to the Vintera series 60s Stratocaster, so same decade inspired by, but just from the more affordable Mexican-made Vintera series, seen here in ice blue metallic. Every time I come back to Strats, I remember how much I really do love them. I've been playing, if you've been following through my other videos, I've gone from playing Jackson Charvel stuff my whole life. Now I'm playing more rocking stuff on Gibson style instruments, but I can't help but love Strats every time I come back. They feel great. You cannot get a thing that sounds as good as a good old Strat sound, and probably one of the most versatile guitars that there is, if I'm perfectly honest. So let's let's talk about them, shall we? So, as I mentioned, this is a finish that Fender introduced to the American Original 60s range at the start of this year. It also does come in a couple of other finishes, Sunburst, Candy Apple Red, and something else that I'm forgetting as well. And it's great. The American Original series was introduced a couple of years ago now, which replaced the American Vintage series. So, generally from the main difference from what I recall, the American Vintage pretty much modelled itself after particular years, after 55, 59, 63, etc. Whereas the American Original and the Vintera gives you decades, 50s, 60s, 70s, etc, etc. And to be perfectly honest, I love it. It's a beautiful guitar. Some people, I think shell pink is one of those things where you either love it or you hate it. And I gotta tell you, I really, really do love it. Let's talk about some of the specs, I think. So we'll start with the bodies on the two of them. So on the American Original here, this guy has an Alder body, exact same as the Vintera guitar as well. I like to think, for the extra money that you're spending on the original, perhaps it's sorted to be a nicer, grain, given its, go finish over it, or just a nicer piece of wood than the Vintera, but, they both feel like they're the same weight, they're both equally resonant, so that's a plus if you're leaning more towards the Vintera at the moment. Where things do start to change is when we get to the actual lacquer that's on the guitar. So, on the Vintera series, like with most Mexican guitars from Fender, that one actually has a urethane finish, whereas the American Original, being a higher level US instrument, this actually comes with your nitrocellulose lacquer, which of course is what they used back in the day, and it gives that more sort of vintage vibe, and it also makes it smell very nice as well. Which, weirdly enough, I've mentioned on previous Gibson videos, and no one ever really seems to talk about it for some reason. I don't know if people think it's too weird, but us guitarists, we always love guitars that smell good, and people actually commented on my Gibson videos saying, that you're the first person to mention it, so let's be more open and honest about our weird guitar smelling stuff, shall we? Anyway, so the gloss lacquer on this, funnily enough, gloss lacquers, nitrocellulose lacquers I should say, they age more and they ding more than, urethane finishes, so it makes you wonder why people would actually prefer these. I mean, the Mexican-made guitar, the colour isn't going to change as much over time, I like to think, and it's also going to be a lot more hardier in terms of, not getting, dented and all that when you knock it. I mean, I've got a Lone Star Strat myself, which is made in Mexico, and that's got a fair couple of knocks. I'll get some close-ups of that just for fun, but I've been playing that thing for 5-6 years now, so it's only fair. So that's the actual lacquer that's on the guitars. They both feel very, very similar, brand new. You're not really going to notice much difference. You are going to notice the smell though, as I mentioned. But the smell also may have something to do with the hard case that this guitar includes, which is absolutely lovely, period correct, looks absolutely stunning, which is a very nice inclusion. Whereas the Vintera here is going to come in a Fender padded gig bag, which is a little bit more portable, but it's not going to offer as much protection. So then we've talked about the body woods and we've talked about the body lacquers, but what about the pickups? So these both do have 60s modelled pickups, as you would imagine. They're 60s Strats. These ones basically, you know, they're higher up in terms of the attention to detail that you're going to get out of the sound. So these ones are called, they're called the grey bottom pickups, because that's basically, it actually literally refers to the bottom of the pickups, which is grey. Which is sort of a notable part of pickups in that era. The Vintera has what's called, you know, just 60s pickups. So they're voiced, you know, to be similar sort of realm. I think similar to, you know, Gibson Epiphone versus videos I've done in the past. The American made guitar just has a bit more clarity to it and a bit more bite, and it's more authentic, I suppose. Both are good, which you can hear, but this just has that next level of magic and zing and mojo and vibe, as you would certainly hope so, because you're spending a bit more money. Both of them do have 5-way pickup selectors. Both of them have got volume, tone. They're different between the two in terms of, you know, which two pickups the first and second tone knobs affect, but it's not really a huge difference. A lot of people don't even really use the tone controls, but if you're going to use it, it's probably going to be on the bridge pickup to sort of back off a little bit of that bite. So yeah, that's the body of the guitar. I just love this finish. I really, really do. Something about the mint green scratch plate on these guitars as well is just super classy, and I love it. So nicely done, Fender. Both exactly the same on the back as well. Just classic, nice and simple Fender. Design hasn't changed in that long for a good reason, because it just works. Before we move away from the body, so in terms of the bridges between these two guitars, now obviously both of them are going to be vintage inspired. The bridge is actually, it's what's called a pure vintage, I believe, which is what they used on the American vintage models, which of course, like I said, this replaced. I think basically, you know, similar to the pickups, similar influence, just, you know, a little bit higher quality in terms of the actual components. I don't know the exact details of, you know, what the saddles are made out of and all that. As far as I'm aware, they are the same, but please feel more than welcome to correct me if I'm wrong. So we have talked about the body, now we can go on to the necks on this guitar. So this is where we do have some more discernible differences. So we'll start off with the actual neck profile. So this has what's called it's a thick 60s neck profile. A little bit bigger than the Vintera model, which I like. Me personally, I do actually prefer a bigger neck, probably because I'm used to playing, like I said, more Gibson style instruments, so it feels a little bit more at home for where I am right now. Whereas on the Vintera, so the Vintera actually has what's called I think it's a mid-60s neck profile, which actually starts a little bit thicker at the nut and slims down as you go up to the 12th, or it's slimmer at the 12th fret. I think they did that to sort of make things a little bit more playable as things developed, but I'm actually liking this. I should say as well, this one comes with 9/46, I think. That's what my calipers said, and it feels like that. So 9/46 out of the factory, whereas the Vintera is 9/42. Which brings me to the next point to do with the actual fretboard radius. Now what's interesting is that, of course, you know, back in the 60s, Fenders were using 7.25 fretboard radiuses, which is a little bit more curved. The American original does not have a 7.25 fretboard radius, which is strange because it has a 9.5, which is what they started using in the 80s, and all these, more high performance instruments that sort of, with flatter fretboards that allowed you to play a bit more effortlessly, were coming out. So yeah, it's weird because, for something that's meant to be a lot more authentically, original, you just thought, I thought they would have gone for the 7.25, but in saying that, it does make it a lot more playable, so, it depends how you are about the nitty-gritty details and keeping it exactly original. But on the Vintera, that one has 7.25, so a bit more authentic, I suppose. This will be another video, but in the Vintera there is the Vintera and then the Vintera modified models, which basically get you like hotter pickups and S1 switching, satin necks, and that 9.5 radius. So that's our radius. I wouldn't say one's better, just depends what you prefer, what your hands work around, what your fingers prefer. So yeah, in terms of the frets, of which there are 21 on both of these, you're getting, they're very, very similar. This is just, these are called narrow tall, I think it is, and those are called just narrow. So yeah, they feel quite similar. I can't really notice any huge difference. One of the main differences you'll notice between the US instruments and the Mexican ones are that this guitar has a Rosewood Fretboard, which is particularly lovely. This one's got a bit of character with some stripes in it, similar to the stripy ebony that they're using in some of the guitars, which I think is nice, gives it a bit of character. Whereas on the Mexican-made guitars, a couple of years ago, Fender made the decision to stop using Rosewood as there was a huge CITES embargo and it became impossible to get Rosewood, so they've been using Palfero for a couple of years. I think Palfero gets a bad rap nowadays, which is weird because, a lot of boutique brands have been using, high-end Palfero for many years as one of the more exotic timbers. And I believe the Stevie Ray Vaughan models also use Palfero on the fretboards. Basically, it's a little bit lighter than Rosewood, probably a little bit more inconsistent in terms of the actual grain. You get a lot more variance, but, I think it does look nice. I'm more of a fan of Rosewood, but, it's not like it's not horrible. It's still going to look good on the guitar, so that's Palfero for you. Yeah, both of these do have gloss necks as well, I should mention. Of course, like I said, this is your nitrocellulose lacquer, and that's just a lacquer. So yeah, the nuts. So this one has a bone nut, as you would expect for a US level instrument, whereas the Vintera has a synthetic bone nut. So, I think, there's something to be said about real bone. There's a reason that it was used for such a long time. I think it offers a little bit nicer tonal qualities and perhaps a bit more tuning stability. But, that's an easy upgrade. Even if you do want to, you don't have to, but, $50 into that will get you a bone nut crafted for it. In terms of the tuners, before I go into the front of the headstock, so both have, again, similar to what I said about the bridge, so more like higher level pure vintage tuners, and of course vintage style tuners on the Vintera as well. Probably the main difference in terms of the headstocks are this is more like a vintage applied decal. You can actually see like the tiny little ridges around the decals where they've been set, whereas it's more in line with your other Mexican made instruments on the Vintera. So yeah, that's that. Ooh, one more thing. This is a minor complaint. It is authentic, but I really wish that Fender would stop putting the truss rod access point, where you got to take off the neck and make adjustments with a screwdriver. It's easy once you know how to do it, but it can be terrifying. Imagine taking the guitar off this, taking the neck off this, like $3,000 guitar that you just bought and having no idea what you're doing. It's terrifying. A good reference point is, if you are going to take the neck off, I recommend just putting a capo on the neck and loosening the strings off a bit. Then when you take off the neck, it's going to keep the strings attached to the neck, little more securely. They're not going to go flying around everywhere, so yeah, it's a bit of a crash course on it for you. But don't be too scared. But this is an American original instrument. They're willing to put a 9.5 fretboard radius, but they're willing to keep the annoying vintage style truss rod adjustment. Why not put it at the top of the headstock like more modern guitars? So yes, hopefully this video does help you to make up your mind. To be perfectly honest, I was very, very impressed with the Vintera. I think the US is of course a better guitar. The American original, I should say, is a better guitar, but it depends if you can justify spending that extra money on it. In terms of not having a guitar that you're too terrified of taking out on the road or taking out because you'll be heartbroken if it gets stolen, or you'll never be able to replace it because it's so expensive, the Vintera is a great option. But if you like a guitar that like I said, the tonal qualities are just a little bit more precise, then the American original may be the series for you. So yeah, thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope this video has been educational and a little bit fun for you. I hope you enjoy how they sound. I will be doing part 2 where you'll be hearing just playing and no talking, so feel free to watch that one now if you want to get a direct comparison. But otherwise, I hope you enjoyed watching the video today, guys. My name is Ollie, and I have been talking about the American original and Vintera 60s Stratocasters from Fender. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.